Mideast Realities, a unique half-hour highlighting the real Middle East. It is a program of information that government and media often misrepresent or just don't want you to know. Get the news without bias. Facts without distortion. And most importantly, analysis from the experts. With your host and chairman of the Committee on the Middle East, Mertv Sd. Each week, this program will feature an interview, discussion, or an event to help viewers understand the complex situation in today's Middle East, and especially the realities of U.S. policies toward that crucial region of the world. Mideast Realities.
Welcome to Mideast Realities. I'm Omar Kura, your guest host for another episode of Mideast Realities TV. I've just come back from a visit to Palestine, and I've been touring around the occupied Palestinian territories for about 2 weeks. The situation in occupied Palestine is worse than ever. The peace process, the so-called peace process, has actually brought more misery, more depression, more economic hardships, more political confusion to the Palestinians, not to mention more violations of human rights. Everywhere you go in the West Bank, you can see the settlements on top of the hills, you can see bypass roads, roadblocks, army checkpoints, you can even see plans for new settlements and new bypass roads. Palestinians today face more difficulty when moving from one city to another in the West Bank. They have been confined to Bantustans or reservations where they need a special pass, a permission to go from one part to the other. In this episode, which is the fourth concluding episode of an interview I've conducted with the General Director of Al-Haq Human Rights Group, which is based in Ramallah in the West Bank, Mr. Muhammad Abu Harthiyah, the General Director, speaks more about the situation of the Palestinian society today, the aspirations the Palestinians have, and the challenges they face in the future. For the last 3 episodes, Mr. Abu Harthiyah has spoken about the human rights violations that are being made by Israel as well as the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. He has elaborated on the results and the outcomes of the so-called peace process on the Palestinian population in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Okay.
Only a security Middle East and economic Middle East. All of us should work for the support of the security of Israel. Jordan have the responsibility to secure Israel. Palestinian Authority have the responsibility to secure Israel. The Egyptians have the obligation to secure. So everybody should work for the security of Israel. This is the new Middle East. And second, economically. Economically, that what we should gain from the peace process is better standard of living to the Palestinian people, better economic situation in Jordan, better economic situation for Egyptians, but it's not political rights. And this also, new Middle East, have causing a new kind of violations to human rights. For example, after the peace agreement between Jordan and Israel, many factories inside Israel which used to feed thousands of families, have moved to Jordan. So now we have raised unemployment among those families who were usually the Palestinians are the majority of those victims. And second, we're looking for a cheap market in Jordan, where also it would cause another problem, which is child labor, which is low wages, less rights to the people, and more profits, and opening a new market for Israel in the Arab world, because those factories would have a trademark saying made in Jordan, made in Egypt, so they could enter Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or the Gulf or Iran even. So this is the new Middle East. On the other hand, Israel is still not happy with the security arrangements, and they insist on using their agents in those countries. For example, the issue of Mish'al in Jordan, the assassination, the policy of assassination for leaders is an example. The case of the spies in Egypt, the spies in Cyprus, the spies in Jordan. So Israel continues to use this opportunity of peace to spread more spies under the pretext of protecting their security. So all the peace process did not change the mentality of the Israelis that we are looking for peace, and peace is the only way to protect their security, and they are seeing it the opposite. The more peace they have, the more interventions in the Arab systems, in the Arab regimes to fight themselves for their security. So I think that without having a real peace, the area would still be affected by small incidents that might change history very quickly. عشان الموضوع مش تخصصي Well, concerning your question about the future of Palestine within a democratic society, as you know that our president is the president of the Palestinian Authority. He is the commander of the Palestinian troops. He is the head of the executive committee, and he is also head of Fatah movement. So he is a leader of different bodies. Today we have the Palestinian people inside the Palestinian Authority areas and the areas under the Israeli control. We have the Palestinian people in the diaspora, especially in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, around the world. And also we have the Palestinian people who are refugees inside the Palestinian Authority area. So we have a president for all those fragments of the Palestinian people. In the future, we expect that we would have the refugees back to their homes. We expect to have an independent state where it's open for all the Palestinians. But at this moment, you need a Palestinian president for this state, who is going to represent those people outside or stay outside. Whether it would be the president, if it's a final solution with a peace agreement with Israel, who would be the president for all the Palestinians, or we would still have a president for Palestine, and there would be no final solution, that there will be a need for another person to be responsible for the Palestinians outside. I think that if we are looking for a democratic society, we have to empower all the institutions of the PLO and all the institutions of the Palestinian Authority. So we have the Legislative Council, we need to have the Basic Law, to know exactly when there will be elections, what is the authority of the president, what is the authority of the legislative council, what is the authority of the executive, the judiciary. So there would be elections. That's what we are talking about in a democratic society. So today it's President Arafat, God knows who is tomorrow. But if we start in a democratic way, there will be no fear of any civil war or civil strifes in the Palestinian state. But this is all not clear. We wish Arafat the longest time, long life, but there is a fear of what might happen if, God forbids, he pass away. If we're talking about the West Bank and Gaza Strip, I think we might have an easy solution, which is the Legislative Council would elect a president for an interim period, or we would have the president of the Legislative Council for an interim period and elections inside those areas. But from outside, what might happen? This is a big question, which nobody knows, nobody can answer at the moment. But we have to work hard, and it's, I think, the responsibility of President Arafat to work harder than anybody else to build up a system that we would not have to live in chaos when this chair is empty, and we would know who's coming, or the process of how to elect someone for this position. And otherwise it would be very difficult to anticipate the results of this. But I think that if we are a democratic society, we would not fear, because of our traditions in democracy in our society, that we would find someone to take this position without bloodshed. Well, concerning the social life in Palestine, I think we have to differentiate between two social lives. One is the rights of the Palestinian woman under the Palestinian Authority, or after Oslo, let's say. And the other issue is the new phenomena in our society. The first thing is the women's rights. I think it's an issue that should be discussed more thoroughly before it's too late. The Palestinian women have suffered more than anybody else in the occupied territories. And the Palestinian women, even outside the occupied territories, have suffered more. The mostly affected always by war are women, especially when they become refugees, because they are the ones who have to stay most of their lives in tents and camps. And also the Palestinian women who have sent her children to resist the occupation and he never came back, also suffered, or he was captured and arrested, also suffered. And the Palestinian woman in the occupied territories who struggled during the 30 years of occupation, either by being imprisoned herself or by the Israeli attacks, violence against her, or during the uprising with all what she has participated in. And also because 800,000 Palestinians were arrested during the 30 years of occupation. It means at least 800,000 women have to go to visit her sons or fathers or relatives or cousins or husbands before the prisons, and spend at least every month 1 day before those prisons, waiting to see her son for half an hour or 10 minutes. The Palestinian women have worked hard to share the man in his responsibilities, and both men and women in the Palestinian society have lost their rights. But today, when we have a Palestinian Authority, those men have regained part of their rights. But those women who have paid all this price and struggled and fighted and done all what is expected from a woman and more, are paying still the same price. I think the Palestinian woman is afraid that what happened in Algeria, for example, would happen to her in Palestine. That she struggled, she was side by side with Ben, but when they have a state, she went back to the kitchen at home. And we are afraid that also this might happen if we not, as men, support women, as human rights organizations would not support women, as the Legislative Council would not support women, as the Palestinian society as a whole would not support women. It's not only the struggle of women to get back her natural rights and political rights. I think that it's a dangerous period because the Legislative Council is legislating laws. If women's rights are not in every single law that might affect her, is not there, there would be a fear for the future of women. Also, today we are building up a state. If woman is not in the political decision making, there would be fear. If she is not in the civil society, it's fear. And also if she's not in the working market, it is a big fear for the future of women in Palestine. I think the situation of women is deteriorating, although there are some figures of women who have succeeded in climbing the ladder to the end of it, but this is not the society, this is the exemption, this is the special cases, but the majority have went back to the kitchen, to the houses, and there are still women organizations who are struggling hardly with support of some of the civil society organizations or movements, but this is not enough. We need to empower women more at this time before it's too late. But the other symptoms of the society which we see, for example, the casinos or the bars, or it's an issue that would not frighten me for the future. I think that we are actually a tourist area. Palestine depends on agriculture and tourism. Agriculture is impossible today because most of our land is confiscated. So tourism is the only alternative. And tourism without these projects, it would be also impossible with the vision of what kind of tourism the whole world is expecting. We have tourism for holy places, which is the main thing, but without having some kind of open society, there would be difficulty for tourism. But the question whether this is the right time and the right place or not, I think it's early for our society to have these kinds of projects. My fear is that it would have a negative effect on the future of openness and having a secular state, because it's easy to attack such projects by Islamic movement and to see those projects as undermining our culture and our traditions and our religion. Then it would be difficult to have them back. And the second thing, we are still struggling, and every day we see blood and people dying and killed, and there is lots of suffering in the Palestinian society, to start to see the luxury side of our society which we never saw before. So I think the issue here to discuss is to say how this fits in the planning of our economy for the future, whether this is part of our vision to the future for a Palestinian economy, whether this is planned or these just projects, who's going to gain from those projects, whether it's the state and this money goes to the pockets of our state and to increase our natural GNP, or this is going to pockets of some few people in the authority. The second thing is that our society is still living under poverty, and many of those projects either would be misused or used for a specific class, which would also widen a gap between our people, either those who came from outside or rich and poor, between men and women, or so on.
I'm Omar Kura, and I've been the guest host for Mideast Realities TV for the last 4 episodes. I've shown you an interview that I've conducted with the General Director of the Al-Haq Human Rights Group based in Ramallah, Mr. Muhammad Abu Harthiyeh, where he spoke extensively about the human rights situation in the West Bank and Gaza Strip and the aspirations that the Palestinians have for the future. With me also the host for Mideast Realities, Mr. Mark Brzezinski, who also watched the interview.
Well, Omar, you know, what strikes me is the dichotomy. On the one hand, between the lines, he's very critical of everything that's happening. I mean, if you listen carefully, he's very critical of Arafat, of the PA, of the Americans, of what the Israelis are doing. But on the other hand, the dichotomous angle is this hope, which doesn't seem to be based in reality. It's based in psychology. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, I've traveled these areas many, many times myself. Each time, more settlements on all the hills over the cities. Each time, more land is taken away from the Palestinians. Each time, more roadblocks. Each time, more restrictions. Yes, the Palestinians have words. They can fly flags, and they can call them a president, and they can call it assembly. But the reality is their land and their resources are gone. Their freedom of movement is gone. Their ability, their contiguous territories are gone. You can't make a real state out of that. That's my view. I mean, how does it seem to you? You live in both worlds too. You're from there, but you've been living here.
Well, I don't see any basis for hope. There is no agenda or plan that the Palestinians have set for the future. They don't know how to deal with the increasing settlements, with the roadblocks, with the increasing Israeli and Arafat oppression that they have to live under. There's more suspicion among the Palestinians now of each other, now that the CIA has also joined in the game.
There's a good reason for suspicion. There's 14 secret police forces. Everybody's been turned into an informer. Everybody's afraid for their own future. The CIA, as you say, has offices, and the FBI all over the place. The Arafat administration is dependent on the Israelis and the Americans for its money and for its arms. It's a classic... It's not a classic situation. It's a sui generis situation. It's a unique situation. But at the end of the day, how can you possibly make a state out of a situation of Bantustans and reservations?
Well, you cannot.
You cannot. The answer is you cannot. So the years ahead are going to be years where, like the gentleman you interviewed, people are going to continue to talk about their hopes, their aspirations, which they've been doing, of course, for nearly 100 years. Mm-hmm. But as each year goes by, the actual ability to fulfill those aspirations is being ripped away from them, and their own leaders are being either forced or encouraged or bribed to sign documents which the legalistic Israelis will then say have justified what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Before, during the Intifada years, you had an Israeli occupation that was clear and defined. Israeli military versus Palestinians seeking self-determination. Mm-hmm. The Israelis are very clever. Now the whole situation is so confused that experts like us have to sit here trying to explain it, even to ourselves, not to mention to people who don't visit these territories. But let's deal with your own psychology. You're a Palestinian. You are from these areas. Your family's from these areas. Is it totally hopeless as far as you're concerned, or? Well, I'm trying to draw you out, and I'm not sure what you're going to say.
Well, from the talks I've had with many of Palestinians, it doesn't seem that they have a plan for the future. I mean, they're always hopeful, but there's nothing that they're going to do that's going to change it. They're always, pinning hopes on diplomatic initiatives, on other changes in the Middle East.
They've been doing that
that's
since
where-
the 30s, when Ben Gurion told them he didn't aspire to a Jewish state. I mean, I've heard firsthand the stories from the children of like Auni Abdulhadi, who was negotiating with Ben Gurion. Ben Gurion was promising there wouldn't be an independent Jewish state. They just wanted to live there and bring more Jews there. The Palestinians seem to have an almost unlimited ability to be manipulated and to be twisted and to be used. And it's hard for an outsider like myself to see much hope in this situation, except for, and here's the irony, as you know, I'm a secular person myself, but I think the Hamas people are just sitting and waiting for the inevitable collapse of the peace process and the inevitable collapse of the authority. And when they come forward, not just in Palestine, but in other parts of the Middle East, it's going to be very hard to see how compromise and peaceful settlement is going to be possible. I mean, your own view of Hamas. I know you're not very much involved with them, but do you think they're just waiting and expecting to inherit the situation?
I believe so. I didn't see much activity in the places I've visited, but I believe in places like Gaza, they probably have larger...
We've come to the end of our program. Tune in next week to Mideast Realities.